here. Hello, everybody. Just getting set up, and I'll start formally in a minute or two. All right. So glad to see some of you all live. I want to make sure you all know my chat function is on, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I kind of plan to do this. So I will look at the chat function for sure during my little talk as much as possible, but I really will come back to it at the end to see like what the questions are as we go through it, what kind of topics have come up, and then that way you all have an opportunity to kind of interact at the end. And then obviously I'll post this for people who aren't watching live, and I'll come back and see if there's questions on the chat for people who watch it later. So the first 3 of my videos were on YouTube. So if you watch those and you want to see the chat interaction, they're on Facebook. So you can go over to Facebook and see those interactions. All right, so our topic today is racial justice and linguistic justice. And the idea of this for me is that the world has really changed a lot since me and the others that I work with have started this direct engagement with race, especially in our linguistic research and in the linguistic community. So we're not the first people to do it, but we are among the group that is growing, and that COVID-19 and the widespread protests in response to 400 years of race-based integration of Black people in particular have put our work in a particular spotlight in this moment. But we have to say, for us, it's a long time coming. So before I get started, I want to invite everyone to our 2nd annual Advancing African American Language and Linguistics Symposium. And it's August 7th through 8th, Pacific time, 9 to 5 on Zoom. So it's on my social media right now, and you can see my social media or send me an email for more info. And it should be up on the Linguistic Society of America and the Linguist List conference list in the next couple of days. So I'm grateful to everyone who's been reaching out, helping me think about these issues of racial and linguistic justice, to people who have written responses to our language paper, and to people who are engaging in really tough conversations in our online medium, which makes it even tougher, on their campuses, at conferences, and on social media. And I really want to reach out to people. If you wrote for language and your paper wasn't selected, or if you haven't had a chance to engage with us directly, really reach out to me now, because I am writing the response to the responses that will appear with the original paper in the December volume of language. And so that's important. So today what I'm going to do is further that work. So go beyond the paper and think about what we're doing now, and talk about several forms of racism and how that directly relate to linguistics, with a mind towards what we can directly do to help change. And there's a quote by Nell Painter in her book, The History of White People, that came out in 2010, that really helps me think about that interaction and kind of thinking about what we need to do. And that quote that is really important to me is this idea of what we can see depends heavily on what our culture has trained us to look for. And overviews of forms of racism in this vein of thinking about Painter are so important as we think about how language plays a role in all of these forms of racism, because of the fundamental ways in which language is human, language is culture, and the ways that both racism and justice are expressed through human communication. So I'm just going to give us a rundown today to really get us thinking about them and trying to think about creatively how we want to address these situations And then this will kind of give us an outline. You all can use this for your teaching, your discussions. Maybe in your tough situation, you just need someone else to kind of take a look at what's going on. You can share this with your colleagues to have that process. The first one I really want to think about is personally mediated racism. To me, it's the most inane form, but it's the most basic, and it's the most insidious. And this is the specific attitudes involved in the act of prejudice. This is differential assumptions about abilities, motives, intentions of others. And language plays such a huge role in this because, as Rosina Lippy Green, and others have made quite clear, language and speech and signing of different groups of people is not really the last form of racism, as some people like to say, but it's the one that people don't realize that they're doing. And it's also when you are realizing what you're doing in terms of trying to actually and intentionally be racist, it can be the most searing. So stereotyping based on language, lack of respect, suspicion, and devaluation, narratives of fear in particular about different languages, and if someone speaks their language to you or speaks a variety, what that means, are all this very visceral internalized forms of dehumanization. And they can take different forms. So explicit personally mediated racism is hate speech, right? It's the way that we speak to each other about different racial